everyone, I'm Graham Ledger, and welcome to the Daily Ledger. Our cover story, the showdown over the shutdown and the debt ceiling and Obamacare. They're all interconnected. What's more, Americans are split over the issues. A majority of Democrats say reopen the government right away, while a majority of Republicans say leave it closed. Interesting. And a polarity of all Americans, 38%, do not raise the debt ceiling. That's what they say. Conservatives in Congress continue to push for concessions from Democrats, concessions on spending and on Obamacare. And Congressman Bill Flores of Texas is trying to remind folks on Capitol Hill the very real damage that Obamacare is doing to very real Americans.
Any program that federally mandates health care and involves punitive sanctions by way of the IRS on tax returns should be considered a crime. It will neither help the poor nor the wealthy that will suffer the negative impact of this plan, but rather the young, the working, and tax-paying family that are just enough to survive. We believe that a bad plan is worse than no plan, and Congress should continue to oppose and repeal the ACA, even if it means the continuation of the government shutdown. We received a letter from President Obama in which he clearly blamed the U.S. House for the shutdown and where he accepted no responsibility. We cannot abide by this president and do not support him or his self-serving ideologies.
So the partial government shutdown is now into day 8, and the debt ceiling deadline is 9 days away. As for Obamacare, the effort to defund or delay is still in play. So what is the overall Republican strategy here? Joining me now from Washington, D.C., Republican Congressman from Texas, District 17, Bill Flores. Congressman, what is the Republican strategy here right now? You are among the conservatives holding John Boehner's feet to the fire. Can you tell us what the strategy is for the overall Republican Party in the House?
Yes, Graham, I can, and thanks for inviting me to be on your show. We want to do multiple things. One is we want to continue to have Obamacare be delayed in terms of the individual mandate. And also, we believe that if Obamacare is good enough for the American people, as the president says that it is, it should be good enough for everybody in Congress without subsidies, and it should be good enough for the president and the vice president, for the cabinet members. So that's the first thing dealing with Obamacare. The second thing is, with respect to the continuing resolution, we want to continue to fund the government at reduced levels like we did last year. And then the third thing is, in exchange for giving the president the debt ceiling increase that he wants, we believe that we need real reforms so that ultimately we can get to the point, hopefully 10 years down the road, where we don't have to raise the debt ceiling again because the budget's balanced and because we're paying off the federal debt.
Okay, so you are at loggerheads with one Harry Reid in the United States Senate. You've tried a couple approaches here. One, a CR that does not fund Obamacare, and then Speaker Boehner has then sent some piecemeal funding mechanisms to Harry Reid. Those have been shot down one by one as well. So what do we do next year?
Well, I think we do a couple of things. One is we've had some success in terms of exposing the weaknesses of the Democratic Party, at least in the House, because at one time or another, 25% of the Democrats in the House have voted with us on these smaller, more targeted funding bills. By the end of today, we will have voted on over 10 individual small funding bills to keep the essential parts of the federal government open. And the aggregate amount of spending that we're talking about is about a third to a half of what the CR would have been had it passed. Now, I'd walk you through history for a second if I could. The first thing we did, we tried to defund Obamacare. Harry Reid shot that down. Then we tried to delay the entire law for a year. Harry Reid shot that down. So now we're asking for something fairly simple, and that is, since the president gave corporations a one-year delay on the employer mandate, why don't we give the American people a one-year delay just like that, and also have Congress and the White House be subject to Obamacare just like everybody else?
Tactically speaking, Congressman, the delay versus defund, it seems to me that it's the defund that should be pushed here. Delay, to me, all that does is push it nearly past the midterm elections in 2014. I'm not one of those people who believes that, hey, let Obamacare sink in and have all these Americans suffer from Obamacare. But at the same time, delaying it is almost like delaying an execution. It's going to come either way.
Well, Graham, I have to agree with you to some extent, and we did try that. We made a full court press on the defunded strategy. Unfortunately, we pushed that string up as far up the hill as it would go, but Harry Reid blocked it. We don't have a way to get around that roadblock today. So what we have to try to do is to do all we can to avoid having Obamacare damage hardworking American families in the meantime. And hopefully after the 2014 elections, we'll have another chance to defund it or to kill it altogether and to replace it with patient-centered, private sector-oriented solutions.
All right, let's talk about the president now. As you noted in the clip that we showed prior to coming to you, the president and Harry Reid have called you a lot of bad names. A lot of rhetoric is being thrown at you all right now, the conservatives in the House of Representatives. What do you believe the president's strategy is here when it comes to the debt ceiling? Do you believe that he'll try and use the 14th Amendment to circumvent what really is the job of Congress?
Graham, I don't think that he would do that, and here's why. Because if you're an investor that's been buying treasuries from the United States government, you've always relied on the full faith and credit of the United States as your security for that. If the president tries to use a trick of unilaterally increasing the debt ceiling under the 14th Amendment, I don't believe that the securities markets would find that to be acceptable, because there would be some doubt as to whether or not those new Treasury issuances had the full faith and credit of the United States behind them. So I don't think he'll do it, but B, if he did, it wouldn't work, because I don't think there would be a market for Treasuries, particularly not at at today's interest rates.
So before we let you go, what's your strategy on the debt ceiling?
Well, our strategy is to try to get the United States government on a glide path to balance the budget in 10 years. As you know, the House of Representatives passed a transformational budget earlier this year that gets us on that glide path, and it had several reforms to Medicare, to Medicaid, to the entitlement programs that are really the big drivers of our debt. And so what I would like to see is, let's take as many of those reforms to our entitlements as we can and put those into this package. Also, I think we need to have tax reform in the package, and also we need to have some policy reforms so that if we can rein in the regulatory regime here in Washington, I think we can get the American economy growing again so that we have more revenues coming in because of economic growth.
But you don't buy into this whole default thing. I mean, when the president said the Republicans want the country to default, what is your reply?
Well, I would remind everybody the only person who has used the word default, the only people that have used the word default, are Harry Reid and President Obama. You have never heard anybody in the Republican Party say that the default is even a plausible solution or a plausible outcome. We believe that we need to sit down and act responsibly and act like adults. I mean, the president's basically saying, I'm not going to negotiate, it's my way or the highway. Well, Mr. President, the Constitution says there are three parts to this government. There's a Congress that consists of two houses, and you have to talk to both of them. And there's also a president, an executive branch, and there's a court system. In this case, the applicable ones are Congress and the president. And we are Article 1. He needs to talk to us because the framers of our Constitution put us first as being the folks in charge of the debt ceiling.
Well put, Congressman. Thanks for joining us. Coming up next, sparring over the partial government shutdown as the Daily Ledger continues.